When I come around, got the whole thing wobbin', wobbin', wobbin'. When I come around, got the whole thing wobbin'.
Hey, what's up everyone? This is Awkward Situations, the series where you guys and gals write comments about situations happening in your lives, awkward or otherwise, and then we talk about them. This is a super jam-packed episode of Awkward Situations with, I believe, 6 comments to discuss. I have a folder where I save your situations, and it is stuffed right now. I have way too many things in that folder, so I wanted to clean it out a little bit. That's what this episode is. I hope you guys enjoy. I haven't edited it at the time I'm recording this audio, so I don't know how long it is. It might be longer than normal. It might be the same length the last few episodes have been. But either way, I hope you guys enjoy, and I shouldn't make it any longer by talking in this intro, so we should just go to the first couple of awkward situations right now. Take me there, Jim. Who's Jim? Hey, Joel, I recently had a job interview at a local pizza place. Towards the end of the interview, I was told that I would receive a phone call when I could begin the training that following weekend. Literally moments after the interview, I began bragging to my friends about how I had gotten the job. I even posted about it on my Snapchat story. However, to my dismay, I never received that phone call. And me being the pussy that I am, didn't call them to find out what the deal was. The situation is that all of my friends think I have this job while I really don't, and even to this point, I have carried on the story that I work there. I don't know what I should do about this, but I feel as if it's a problem waiting to happen, and the longer I keep it going, the worse it's going to get. Also, I should add that I am in high school, so having a job kind of makes you look cool, at least to my friends anyways. I can think of many examples from my past of lies that I have told and having to deal with the consequences of those lies, so I could go in more than a few directions with this situation, but I'm going to try to keep it on the subject of jobs, and more specifically, the first job you have, because there was this other great comment that I'll put on the screen. If you're not watching the video, it just says this person has their first job in a grocery store and they always smell like gross meats because they work in the meat department and they don't like it. So what do they do about that? I can't really help them with that, obviously, but I just wanted to talk about my experience with a lie I told at my first job, and then my second job, which was more like my first job because I actually had to punch in, and my first job was just doing yard work for this rich person. So let me tell you that story right now. So I've said this before, but I lived in 3 houses growing up. The second house is where I spent the majority of my youth. It wasn't a great house. I had great experiences in that house, and I have the best memories from that house, but I think it would be worth maybe $100,000 on today's market. I could actually look that up on a website, but it was just a single-story house that had some great woods behind it, but the actual house wasn't that great. However, near the house, about, let's say, 300 yards down the road, there was a subdivision with many, many nice houses. So I had a friend that lived in this subdivision. His family is very successful. His dad drove a Corvette, and his house was very nice, a nice place for my friends and I to hang out growing up, and I'm still friends with this dude to this day. When we were about 13, we started doing yard work around the neighborhood, his neighborhood, for another rich person specifically. I think we did it for a couple of houses, but after a while we just focused on this one dude's house because he really liked having some yard work done. I'm talking about set up these bushes to look like a swan. You know what I'm saying? Like, he just wanted to do weird shit to his yard on the weekends, which is totally cool. He had an immaculate yard and an immaculate landscape setup, and he just wanted 2 young boys to help him with this type of stuff. Nothing sexual, nothing weird. It was just a solid first job. He's like, come over on a Saturday, do this work, and I'll give you $60. That was really cool. The most valuable lesson I learned at this job is to be upfront about things that you don't know. And I'm sure I had to learn that lesson a couple more times in my life, but this lesson was particularly jarring. So you have to picture this man. He's an older gentleman, early 50s, late 40s, very successful. Guy's been successful his whole life. He's had a great life. He's worked hard, and he has a lot of money. And he's got these 2 hot young boys. I'm just kidding. I don't know if I was attractive as a 13-year-old, but it's not sexual, okay? He just has 2 young boys working for him, shirts off usually, makes us do push-ups and get sweaty. Okay, I need to be serious. It was a solid job, and I acted like I knew more than I did about landscaping. To be honest, I had mowed my grandma's lawn maybe 27 times before I started working for this guy, so I didn't really know anything about landscaping. And I think he assumed that we knew more than we did. He took us at our word, which is a thing that is nice, a good quality, but you shouldn't trust 13-year-olds. They're fucked up in the head. So anyway, I shouldn't say that, but, I was lying. He asked me if I knew how to trim bushes, and I was like, fuck yeah, I know how to trim bushes. I do it in my spare time. I love trimming bushes. I trim bushes in my sleep. I had never trimmed a bush in my life. That was very dishonest. And he said, good. And then he started saying some words, and I kind of zoned out because I don't know. I was 13, and I was like, man, I already know how to trim bushes. This dude doesn't need to tell me. I've seen people do it in the movies before. It's easy. And he gives me these hedge clippers or hedge trimmers, whatever you call them, the big knives that you cut bushes with. And he gives me those, and he says, all right, go to work. I'll come back out in an hour. He went inside and, I don't know, watched Netflix, except you couldn't watch Netflix in 2003. So he did something. So about an hour passes. This dude comes back outside, and he looks at my job and just flips shit. He was pissed. I was about to be like, here you go, sir. Here are your nice bushes that I just trimmed for you. But I didn't even get a word in. He was just screaming. He was irate. He came over and said, you mangled them! You mangled them! And I hadn't heard the word mangled in conversation much up until this point in my life. So I was mostly confused about the screaming, and I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What did I do? And he said, these bushes took 7 years to grow. They take 7 years to grow, and you cut them. You cut them too much. I told you just to cut around them. And I had actually cut into a bush that, like I said, was very important. They took 7 years to grow. I mean, 7 years of this dude's life were spent watching this bush grow. And then, like some sick tree murderer, I just come over to his house and try to do a decent job for him, but I didn't listen to the instructions to not go too far over to the bush next to the one I was supposed to be trimming, because that one was the 7-year bush. And you can't cut the 7-year bush because it's a very important bush. I'm sure it was from somewhere foreign like Yugoslavia, and it's a bush that they worship in Yugoslavia. I don't know. He was into some weird, cool shit. I like him. I don't want to sound like I disrespect this person, because I look up to him as a member of the community that I lived in, and I think he was very successful. But man, he was upset about this bush, and I was just like, God damn, dude, it's a fucking bush. You're yelling at a 13-year-old over this bush. But he was upset, and I should not have lied and said that I knew how to trim bushes, or at the very least, I should have listened when he gave me instructions. So listening is also very important. I didn't have to talk to a therapist about this, but I do remember having nightmares about him getting mad at me in my dreams because I did a bad job or I was late to work for a while. I still have nightmares about my old jobs, like showing up to work late and my boss is getting super upset at me, or I still to this day have dreams about basketball. I think I'm going to basketball practice, or I think I'm going to be playing basketball for my high school team, but I'm a 26-year-old man, so that's very weird, and that's not something that happens. I should give you advice on this situation. I've talked for 7 minutes about my own life and completely ignored yours, so let me give you some advice. If I were you, I would just fess up to the lie. I mean, I find that's easier than any type of complicated situation that you could create by trying to tell another lie. I mean, once you stack lies on top of lies, they're like really shitty Jenga pieces. The thing's going to fall down eventually, and it's going to be way more to clean up. Right now, you have a couple of Jenga pieces on your table. And if you don't play Jenga, this analogy is really fucking confusing. If you don't play Jenga, Google it. Right now, you got a couple of pieces on the table. Those are lies. You can clean those up if they fall down. But once you start to stack more lies on top of lies, it's going to get very messy once that thing falls down, because it's going to fall down. It's an inevitability unless you just stop talking about your job. Like maybe one day your friends could be asking about your job and you could just breathe in really deeply and say, money isn't important to me now. I'm a spiritual being. But that doesn't make a lot of sense either. Like I said, I would just tell your friends, hey, I have to be honest with you. I lied about having the job at the pizza place. I wanted to impress you all. I don't know why I didn't get the job. It's really stupid. I actually had a situation like this when I was going to apply for colleges. I applied to go to Michigan State. It's a place that I loved growing up. I still love it to this day. And I always lived in the East Lansing area, worshipped Michigan State athletes, and I thought I was going to get into Michigan State very easily because I had the average GPA of students that got accepted into the college. So I was telling everyone at the start of my the start of my senior year that I was going to be going to Michigan State next year. Lo and behold, on December 31st, New Year's Eve, 2008, I got a letter from Michigan State saying they rejected me. Needless to say, I did not go out that New Year's Eve because I was very upset, and I eventually had to tell people that I didn't get accepted. They understand usually. Everyone in high school is just trying to impress other people, so usually people can relate to somebody going too far in trying to impress others in the fact that they had to lie to people. So don't worry about it. Just fess up and tell your friends you weren't honest. It's not going to be a big deal. And in terms of shitty first jobs, that first job wasn't so bad for me as a 13-year-old doing yard work. My first real job was working at a golf course, and I would not consider that shitty at all. I think that was a super fun job. I worked with older people who would drink, and then I was just a 17-year-old who was awkward and tall, and I got to have some great life experiences. I fucked up a few times. I got yelled at. You'll learn when you have jobs like that. It's good to have quote-unquote bad jobs, because looking back, it was a bad job. I had to work during the hot summer sun, and I didn't make a lot of money, although I think I made pretty decent money at the time compared to other people in my age group. I feel like I've always had a decent job where I've made slightly more money than the average person, so I'm lucky in that sense. But I always smelled like warm beer. There was this bad part of my job working at this golf course where I had to sort out beer cans, and I blame this part of my job for me not really liking beer to this day. I'll drink beer, but my brother and my brother-in-law and my dad and my sister's boyfriend, like everyone in my life is super into craft beer. Michigan is a big beer state, and according to many sources that rate beers, we have some of the best craft beers in the country here, but I'm just not that into it because I had this job. When I was a youth, for 3 years, I would be sorting through old beer cans, and I know what beer smells like when it's warm, and it got all over me, and it was gross, and I got pulled over one time, and the police officer asked if I was drinking, and I just said, no, I work at local golf course, and I had to sort through beer cans, so this is why I smell like really old bread, because that's what beer smells like when it's warm, and it's hot, and you have to recycle thousands of cans during the course of a couple of days of work. But the best thing about your first job is everyone else who is experiencing that job is probably feeling the same way you are, and it becomes a bonding experience and a great thing to look back on once you're older. So that's the job situation. I'm sorry I talked so long. I wanted to get through more than a few awkward situations in this episode, and we're already almost halfway through my normal recording length. So let's move on to the second awkward situation right now. Joel, I would like some advice on how to avoid an awkward situation. I am 27 and got married at 19, in parentheses, not recommended. A few months ago, my wife left me because over the years I became non-religious and she wanted a religious man. When I travel home for Christmas break, I will see my family for the first time since my divorce. A few of them know about it, but I haven't really talked to anyone about it. Should I just avoid talking about it? Should I only tell my close family the details? My family is very religious. I am concerned they will automatically take her side and make me feel more distant, thus awkward than I already do. I want to tie this situation in with another situation in which a person was talking about having sex for the first time as a male, and they actually could not get an erection during sex. They had a little performance anxiety. So we're going to talk about religion, and then I'm going to tie it into the first time you have sex, because if you're super religious, the first time you have sex with someone is usually when you're married. And I don't know how I feel about that, so let's talk about it. Good Mythical Morning. Okay, no, I'm sorry. That will only make sense to you guys if you know the YouTube channel Good Mythical Morning. But religion, all right? So your family is super religious. Hopefully they are not religious to the point where they cannot understand that things happen in relationships. And sometimes you grow apart from people. Divorce happens. It's not a big deal. I honestly think it's better than staying with somebody who makes you miserable. I have a friend whose parents don't really love each other, to be honest. They haven't slept in the same room since the Clinton administration. And I think that's very sad. And I would rather they just get a divorce, but they say, no, we have a lot of money, we're successful, and if we get a divorce, we'd have to split up our estate, and it's all complicated. But that's very sad because they could be happy with other people and they choose to be miserable together. So I don't think it's a bad thing that you got divorced, and I hope your family could understand. I mean, if they don't get that, I can't put myself in the shoes of someone who is really religious because I am not. But if they don't understand that, that's bullshit. I would definitely stick to telling your close family. And if any of your distant family has questions about it, I would just say, look, to be honest with you, it didn't work out and I'm still working through it. I don't really want to talk about it, but I appreciate your concern. And if they were like, let me just tell you, Cousin Tommy, you're going to hell because that's where people who get divorced go. You're going to hang with Satan and you're going to go to hell because you got a divorce. I would say, listen, Suck my dick. I only have to see you once a year. Actually, don't say that, because now your religious family is going to get really upset. That's the side of Joel that is not rational coming out and speaking. But I mean, really, you don't see those people very often, so I don't really care what they think about me when I see them. I like to be cordial to my family, but I only really care what my close family thinks about me, because I know my relatives know that I do YouTube, and I'm sure they've seen a few of my videos, and they probably think, wow, this is really fucking weird, because you could comb through my channel and you could find many examples of things I've done that are really fucking weird, and you would create some type of opinion of me that doesn't necessarily reflect how I am as a person. You know, my art doesn't necessarily reflect my personality, but that's okay. I don't care what they think about me, because I don't have to see them that much, and they're nice to me when they see me, so they can say whatever they want behind my back. I think you're going to be fine, and if it doesn't turn out well, then please leave another comment, because that's going to be an even better awkward situation than this hypothetical awkward situation. And in terms of having sex for the first time, I gotta be honest with you all. Some of you watching this video have had sex for the first time. Some of you have not. It's not that great the first time you have sex. I should bring Shadow on, because he has a whole rap about this, but then it gets a little too deep into humans not needing sex, and I don't follow him off of that end of the cliff that he's diving off of. He's very good at making arguments for topics that are very hard to argue for. My friend Shadow is a YouTuber, if you don't know who that is, but I'm assuming if you watch this video, you know who that is, because he's been in other videos. Anyways, yeah, so sex for the first time, not amazing. It doesn't make a lot of sense to you. You're wearing a condom usually if you are being safe, and if not, I don't know what that feels like, because I wore a condom the first time I had sex. I'm a little bitch boy. I didn't hit it raw doggy style. I just wrapped it up and tapped it, and it hurts the girl usually. So that's not a big turn on for a lot of people, to see the partner that they're having sex with in pain. Some people like it. Masochism, you know, it's an interesting thing, but I don't like it when I feel like the person I'm having sex with is experiencing discomfort, and they're saying things like, ow, it hurts, or, oh, please slow down, or, are you in yet? It's so small, I can't feel it. I'm just kidding. My wife has not said the third thing, but she's definitely, you know, she said the first two things before, because sometimes girls just got to warm up to it, and especially the first time they have sex, their bodies are not fully prepared for what's going to go down. I mean, they're being slammed by a hard salami sword for anywhere between 30 seconds and half an hour. I mean, you guys obviously gave up, but that's what happens the first time you have sex. It's terrible. It's like a YouTube channel. The first video you upload, almost no matter what, is going to be terrible. I thought about my first video for the longest time. I wanted it to be the best video ever uploaded to YouTube, and it's a shit video. And then I uploaded many shit videos. I still upload shit videos to this day, but I'm learning from those shit videos. And if you look at my quality in 2016, you could compare it to my quality in, let's say, 2013, and notice some better things that I do. Same with sex. You have to have sex for the first time, and you want it to be the best thing in the world, but quite honestly, it will not be the best thing in the world. So just get through it, learn from your mistakes, maybe ask her if you can film so you can watch the game tape like a quarterback. Don't do that. But yeah, you're going to learn from your mistakes, and you're going to get better. You're going to be a real man. So don't sweat the stage fright. If she doesn't want to have sex with you again, I guess I understand. I would try to explain to her that you had some performance anxiety because you've never been with a woman as beautiful as her, and if she were to just give you another chance, it would mean everything in the world, or some smooth shit like that, and you could just relax. You know, it's not a big deal. You're probably hyping it up to be something bigger than it is. If you have any medical issues beyond what I'm saying, I would Google some solutions, because I am not a doctor or a psychiatrist or anything of real importance. So I hope you get that figured out. And if you do or do not get this situation figured out, I would appreciate maybe a follow-up comment on a future video so you can tell me what happened. I'm interested to know what's going to go down in your life. And to the guy who is visiting his family on the holidays, I already told you to leave another comment if it goes bad. So yeah, two great situations there. Let's move on to the final situation or situations. To stick with the theme of tying two situations together, here's the first one. All right, Mr. Epic, here's an awkward situation. Last question. I'll try to put the gist of the story really early on so that you at least build it up early on. How do you handle your thoughts? How do you not, quote, give up on life? Not the kill yourself one in general. Okay, so then there's a lot of stuff, but basically this person is explaining that they thought their life was going to be great, as you do when you're a child. They thought they were going to get a Lamborghini and all this cool stuff, and it's turning out their life is just kind of average. So how do you not give up on life, even if it's not turning out to be what you thought it might be? The second situation says, "Hey Joel, not so much an awkward situation, but do you have any advice on marriage? I'm still only young, but I'm moving to the US to live with and eventually marry my fiance. He's all I want, and the relationship has been great so far. We've been separated for 6 months, and I was just wondering if you found making the transition into living with Megan was difficult or not. I doubt it was, because to just look at the two of you, you can see how much you love each other. I was just wondering if you had any advice for making things work in tough times, and any advice in general about marriage and the next step. Longtime fan, longtime subscriber, love all the content you bring out. More screen time for Finn." That second dude really does comment on a lot of my videos, so I wanted to be sure to put his situation in the video because I appreciate seeing the same names and faces over and over again, and I try to communicate with those people that are always around whenever I can because I value them so dearly. But let's talk about the first, more depressing topic. Why is life worth living? Before we get into something happier, like why is marriage awesome? Recently, where I live on Michigan State's campus, a man killed himself in the woods. And before he killed himself, he wrote a manifesto explaining why he killed himself. It was like a book, and it had chapters. He posted it on the internet for all to read. So I read through it, and a couple of members of my family read through it, like my mom. And I remember saying to my mom, you know, he really thought about this. He clearly did not want to live on his life, and I guess it makes sense why he killed himself. And my mom is this bastion of positivity. I thought she was going to say to me, Joel, that's so dumb that you say that. There's no good reason to kill yourself, which I honestly do believe there isn't a good reason to kill yourself unless you have some terminal illness and you want to take your life into your own hands. But she agreed with me. This guy made this great argument for why life wasn't worth living. He's not religious, so he didn't believe that there was going to be somewhere he went after his life, and he didn't want to experience future tragedies in his life, and I thought his life was on a great track. He explained where his life was going. He was a quote-unquote normal person, was on track to get a great degree, and he still killed himself. And I've had times in my own life where I thought, I don't see how it gets better than this, and I'm worried about failing. I don't know what to do. It's hard to make a decision because there are a lot of decisions you make in your life that are not right or wrong. They are just decisions, and you live with the consequences. There are no obvious choices to some questions. There are no obvious answers to some questions, and you have to make those decisions anyway, and it sucks. I am a high recommender. I'm not smoking weed. I highly recommend therapy because those people are like thought sorters, therapists. They help you sort out your thoughts. You have a lot of things going on in your brain, especially when you're trying to figure your life out around the age of 18. There are emotional thoughts and there are logical thoughts. Sometimes they bump up against each other, but if you have a thought sorter, you can figure those things out easier. It has helped me many times in my life. Or if you don't want to go to therapy, if you don't want to commit to that, I would just advocate writing things down, because when you write things down and write out your ideas, it helps when you can read them back and you can get them all on paper, and I find that that's just as effective in some cases. But if you can step back from your own life and think about it, there are so many people in this world who are not going to be, in this guy's example, rich or famous or maybe even impactful in the way that they change many, many people's lives, celebrities or athletes, whatever this person thought they were going to be when they were younger. I remember thinking I was going to be an astronaut or a famous artist. I never thought I was going to be a famous YouTuber. YouTuber wasn't a thing when I was younger. I got extremely lucky. I don't even know how I would feel about this subject if I didn't experience the positive side of it, but having felt the negative side of it and then experiencing the positive side of it, I would just say that, and I feel almost hypocritical saying this because I do feel like I've had some success in my life, but I just feel like it's not important. I feel like the true meaning of life is the experiences you have with other people. They're so meaningful, and it brings me so much joy to be with my wife. And I want to have kids one day and see them grow up and see my parents turn into grandparents. And there's tragedy you experience in life, but the tragedy you experience just makes those positive experiences feel so much better. There's this poetry to life, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And you're going to experience tragedy throughout this journey, but you can always recover, no matter how bad. Like I said, terminal illness is an exception, but you can recover from most things. Humans are adaptable. But if you end that life, you end that experience, you end that journey, you obviously can't recover, and then you really hurt a lot of people that are close to you who want to know the signs they missed or what they could have done to enhance your experience, because there's no coming back from death. So I would just advocate for your journey. As someone who's had a mild success, maybe I'm an F-list celebrity. You know, you got your A-list celebrities, your B-list celebrities, your C-list celebrities. People recognize me in the streets, maybe a couple of people every day. No, that's too much. It's more like 5 people a week recognize me when I'm out and about in public, which isn't that often. And as someone who's had that success, I just want to say that it isn't everything in the world. It's easier to say that once you've reached this level, but, you know, this F-list level that everyone envies, and obviously it would be cool if I had a lot more money and a lot more fame, I guess, in some ways, but in a lot of ways it wouldn't be more cool, because then you also have more problems. It's just not everything. You know, having a Lamborghini isn't everything in my life. I'll probably never have a Lamborghini in my life, and I'll probably never have a $20 million mansion in my life, and all of these things. I'm going to die without having all of these experiences that only a few people on this earth get to experience. And that's okay. It doesn't matter. You can have all the money in the world and be lonely and feel like shit and die, and you can be poor and have a happy, fulfilling life. And I know this all sounds like a bunch of bullshit, but I really just truly feel that way. If you don't want to take my word for it, how about try it out yourself? Just give life a chance and try to experience everything you can, because I think it's cool to just go on the journey. Speaking of journeys, marriage is fun. I love my wife, Megan, and I like being married, but it doesn't feel a whole lot different than being with a person for a long time. You kind of get to know if you can be married to a person. We were together for, let's see, 5 years before we got married, like 6 years, something, I don't know. We were always in each other's lives, even if we were at different parts of our relationship or not talking as much or hanging out with each other constantly. You know, that person is in my life. And I think something you're going to want to pay attention to in terms of living with somebody and being married to them, because you said you were in a long distance relationship with this person, is if you get sick of them. I know it's natural to get sick of people, to want to have some time to yourself. I have time to myself all the time because I record videos alone in my room. But I never get sick of hanging out with my wife, if that makes sense. Like, I just don't get bored of her. So that's something to pay attention to. And also, what do you fight about, if you fight about anything, and how long do those arguments last for? I saw a couple in a grocery store recently arguing about what type of hand wash they were going to get. The woman was advocating for the more expensive kind, and the dude was just like, we don't have the money for the expensive gingerberry hand wash. And if your relationship is filled with teeny tiny arguments, I could only imagine how difficult it would be to have children or buy a house. And I think those are two important things to focus on. If you ever get bored of being with a person, and not bored to the point where, you know, I want to go play video games with my friends, bored to the point of I don't want this person to be near me for a period of hours or days, that's a bad sign. And, arguments about little things, I think, kind of lead to bigger problems being more difficult to figure out when they come your way, because they will come your way. And that's why I like being with my wife. We don't argue about the little things, and it makes me feel like I have a partner to tackle those big things in life with, and I never get sick of her. So that's marriage. It's not that different than being with someone for a long time. It's just a legal status, and you live with each other, but you can live with each other without being married. So I don't know. I like marriage, and I think it's cool. I advocate for it, and I hope you have a good marriage with your dude. Hope he's got a stiff cock. Okay, I don't want to talk about your sexual life. I was going to say, I hope he's got a stiff thing for you to play with. That's dope as fuck. This is getting weird. Let's end awkward situations. Please leave your awkward situations in the comments, and anything else you want to talk about. I appreciate all you guys watching this longer episode, because I wanted to get a lot of these awkward situations out of my folder. I'll see you again this time next week. Goodbye.